today's announcement on energy. Bonjour à tous et bienvenue à cette annonce sur l'énergie. Joining us this morning, we have the Honorable Susan Holt, Premier of New Brunswick, the Honorable Rennie Leggett, responsible for Energy and Minister of Finance and Treasury Board. Nous avons avec nous ce matin la Première ministre du Nouveau-Brunswick, l'Honorable Susan Holt, et le ministre des Finances et du Conseil des Trésors et ministre responsable de l'Énergie, l'Honorable Rennie Legacy. The format for this morning's update is as follows. Premier Holt will deliver remarks, followed by remarks from the minister. Then we'll proceed with questions from members of the media. Voilà comment nous allons procéder à la mise à jour de ce matin. La première ministre Holt prononcera son discours suivi du ministre. Après les discours, nous passerons ensuite aux questions des membres des médias. Avant de céder la parole à la première ministre, voulez-vous assurer de désactiver le son de vos micros? Before I turn things over to the Premier, I would like to ask everyone online to ensure your microphones are placed on mute. Premier.
Bruce, good morning, everyone. We are here today because we have been listening to New Brunswickers for many months, and we have been hearing their worries and frustrations and concerns about rising power bills. Excuse me. Nous sommes ici parce que nous avons...
We are here today because we heard from New Brunswickers their frustration. We're listening when they were sharing with us their concerns and their worries during the last few months about electricity rates in New Brunswick. We understand that frustration and those worries.
And something that the whole government takes very seriously. We are taking action. Today, we are formally announcing a comprehensive review of Energy Nouveau-Brunswick. A comprehensive review of NB Power will be undertaken. This review will be independent and at arm's length from government to ensure that we get the right options and solutions from the process. We need to ensure the financial sustainability of NB Power and the financial sustainability of NB Power's customers.
These measures that we're announcing today is a total review, comprehensive review that will be independent to ensure that we obtain the right options, the right solutions. We have to ensure the financial viability of New Brunswick, Energy New Brunswick, and for New Brunswickers.
Quo is not an option. We know that there won't be one easy fix to this problem. The challenges that NB Power faces are complex, and it will take many solutions to address them. We can't keep kicking the can down the road as many previous governments have done. Transformative change is required. The status quo
is no longer an option. We know that there won't be any easy solutions, that the challenges that Energy NB are faced with, that NB Power is faced with, is complicated, and there's no easy solution. So transformational change is necessary. We won't constantly push off these issues to the next government. We're going to act right now.
Transparency. Today is the first step on a journey, and we will continue to keep New Brunswickers informed every step of the way. Aujourd'hui, c'est la première étape.
Today is the first step in this process, and for us, transparency is essential. We will make sure that New Brunswickers are aware and know what all of the progress that's being done at every step.
Is to build a sustainable NB Power that earns the confidence of New Brunswickers, that can deliver affordable, reliable, and sustainable electricity to New Brunswickers. Notre objectif ultime.
Our ultimate goal is to build NB Power that is sustainable, that it can maintain the confidence of New Brunswickers. Our objective is to ensure that NB Power and power in New Brunswick that is affordable, reliable, and sustainable for every New Brunswicker.
with. It's really why we're here. Our ultimate goal is to make sure that New Brunswickers have access to affordable, safe, reliable, and sustainable energy in New Brunswick. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Renee Legacy.
Well, thank you, Premier. Merci. Madame la Première ministre,
Thank you to the Premier.
va répéter.
My first point, I'll be repeating exactly what you just said.
Is affordable, reliable, sustainable electricity for New Brunswickers. Our government has taken clear steps to address short-term affordability measures, including the 10% rebate on electricity consumption that New Brunswickers started seeing on their bills as of January 2025. This comprehensive review is about ensuring that everything possible is being done to provide low and stable rates for New Brunswickers, ensure reliability of service, and ultimately position NB Power to manage growth and a clean energy transmission in an affordable, competitive, and financially sustainable way. Competitive electricity rates are key to supporting our export-dependent industries and in attracting future economic development and growth. Sur la structure
About the structure, and the review will be led by a team of 3 responsible independent that are experts in different fields, and they will be responsible for collecting data and to formulate recommendations based on their conclusions. They will be supported by a committee that will be taking strategic decisions and to guarantee the flexibility necessary to work in an independent and objective manner. There will also be a committee, an advising committee that will be composed of independent members, and that will maintain constant communication of
financial sustainability, governance and utility structure, investor attractiveness and strategic partnerships, and customer expectations. I just realized with all the ands that feels like it's more 6 or 7, but there's actually 4 main buckets of review and focus that has to be taken care of here. La réussite de l'examen passe.
the success of the review requires constant consultation with New Brunswickers. As we announced earlier, the consultation process will be rigorous and will be developed with those responsible for the review with the advising committee and the directing committee. There will be a number of meetings, individual meetings with the main stakeholders, advocates, and those that hold ancestral rights, and it will also use different virtual and in-person meetings, such as polls and public consultations, so that New Brunswickers can be heard.
Expected next month, with the engagement period set to begin in June, and it's going to last till fall. Our goal would be to have an interim report summarizing the public and stakeholder engagement released by the end of this year. Final recommendations and any decisions will come before the end of the current fiscal year, which is March 31st, 2026. You can access information about the review online at gnb.ca/NB Power Review. Et en français, ça serait gnb.
And in French, it's gnb.ca/NBpower.
Seront ajoutés au fur et à mesure du déroulement du processus. And that last point is very important.
There will be additional details.
Be regular communication with the public on this process. So as we go along, you can expect more and more of these updates. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup à vous deux. Well, now, media, we do have a limited time for questions, so each reporter will have one question and a quick follow-up. You have the right to pose your question in the official language of your choice. Just to let everyone know, I will be alternating between members of the media who are present in the room and online. Nous allons maintenant procéder au
We will now move on to questions from journalists from the media. We have a limited time, so each journalist can have a main question and a follow-up question very quickly, and you have the right to answer the question in the language of your choice. Jacques Poitras.
No matter where this process leads, there's a $5 billion debt that won't go away. It can't just be erased. So what do you do with that debt, regardless of whatever path you take? What are the real options for that debt?
Oh, that's a good question, and that's part of what this review should get at. What are the options for the debt? We've heard suggestions from economists that the government adopt the debt. We've seen in the past solutions related to transferring that debt to a purchaser of the utility. And so the point of doing a comprehensive review is to look at all of the possible options, because the debt is absolutely one of the things that is impeding the utility from doing what it needs to do in terms of maintenance and affordable rates for New Brunswickers.
If I could add, there's also the full discussion on the debt. We tend to focus on the fact that there's a $5 billion debt. Let's be realistic. NB Power is a asset-rich company. All utilities are. There's always going to be some form of debt. The concern is what level of debt is appropriate, and that's why we get back into the ratio of 80-20. But that's the discussion that we need to have with the utility and with the public as to what is comfortable and what is appropriate for their debt.
When people who were in the Graham government talk about the attempted sale of NB Power, they'll often say it was the right idea, it was just badly communicated. But the other possibility is that the public just didn't like it. So what happens if your expert opinion comes up with an option that the public is just dead set against? How do you decide in that case?
Well, that's a hypothetical question, but that actually comes down to politics at its core, is figuring out what is the right thing to do, what's the best thing to do, and what is the public willing to accept and prepared to expect, and what is our job in terms of consultation and conversation and education to get to a place where the right thing to do, the best thing to do, is also what the public wants to do. That's why we don't have any predetermined outcomes here. The point is to engage with experts, with New Brunswickers, get all perspectives out there, do it in a way that's transparent, bring New Brunswickers along, and hopefully what is the best thing for New Brunswick will also be the thing that New Brunswickers are most interested in. Because what we're hearing from New Brunswickers today is that they cannot afford double-digit rate increases year over year for the foreseeable future. They want to know that their power is going to increase at a rate that matches their own income increases and their own ability to pay. And right now, we can't reassure them that that's the trajectory for the utility. We need to look at doing things differently, and we need to engage New Brunswickers and experts in that conversation, see what the recommendations are, and then it is the job of politicians to determine how far we can go and how close we can get to what might be a technically ideal solution that isn't publicly ideal.
Anna Madden, Global TV.
Good morning. People have been calling for a review like this for months. What made your government make the decision now?
Well, they've been calling, to be honest, a big part of that was part of my mandate when we first got elected to really look at the energy sector. Obviously, with this winter and how the bills have gone and the discussion that's been in the public, it renewed the emphasis on wanting to have that discussion. But I would say we were certainly having that discussion as a party well into past last year, where we needed to have a review.
I'll add to that. It was in our election platform. And the reason why it was in our election platform is because it's something that we saw coming. And Renee was the energy critic. We saw the debt not going down. We saw the rate applications that NB Power was making to EUB that were in the double digits and forecast to be in the double digits for a very long time ahead. We are pushing the government of the day to try to take measures to address affordability. We did that early upon forming government, but that measure of a 10% discount for New Brunswickers was a temporary measure. We need to ensure structural affordability of power in New Brunswick. And so this is something that we committed to in our platform. And now that we've had about 160 days in government to figure out how are we going to tackle this, what is the review going to look like, who's going to do it, how are we going to engage with New Brunswickers on the subject. And we were moving as quickly as we could.
A lot of people are raising concerns about the smart meters. How much will that play into this, and how much will NB Power's internal audit play into this?
We're hearing a lot of comments, of messages about smart meters and people's concerns about their unique situation and how their bills have spiked. And that's why we directed NB Power to undertake an audit to see what happened with people's bills in January and February and March. And that's why they asked for more time to look at more smart meters and traditional meters to really pinpoint what has happened there. So that is a separate piece of work that is happening right now, and we have directed NB Power to get back to us with the results of that audit as quickly as possible. We had wanted to see it at public accounts at the end of February. They asked for more time to sample more meters and more bills. We now expect to see that audit report back before the end of April.
Thank you. We're going to go online. Nous allons en ligne. Natalie Sturgeon with CHCO The Courier. Ms. Sturgeon, can you unmute your microphone and ask your question, please?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Hello?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Natalie.
Okay. I just wanted, Mr. Legacy said they would expect this report by the end of the year. And naturally, as you have, we've been receiving a lot of calls from folks that are really anxious about paying their power bill that they can't afford. What assurances can you give, or any relief that you can give to New Brunswickers, given the timeline on this and sort of what they're facing in terms of their monthly power bills?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Natalie. We hear it, right? We hear people who are looking for relief and who are looking for help. And that was exactly what we had intended to do with the 10% rebate that we put in place on January 1, was to provide some of that relief to counteract the previous increase to rates. And we know that $90 million investment was really hard for New Brunswickers to see as their bills went up more than 10% and got harder and harder to pay. And so we are also anxiously awaiting the report from NB Power and their auditors on those spiking bills and the cause of it, to try to really understand what are we looking at here, as well as evaluating mechanisms for short-term support. We've already used one to the tune of $90 million. We're looking at other mechanisms that we could undertake to provide that short-term support. The conversation today is about the medium and long-term action, because while we can Band-Aid today, we need to get to work on the solution for tomorrow, because New Brunswickers need a reliable electricity future. They need to know that we're not going to put something temporary and political in place that could be undone tomorrow, that we need to fundamentally ensure that our utility is on a trajectory that is reliable, safe, affordable, and sustainable in all senses of the word, financially and environmentally, for the future. So today we're talking about that review for the medium term. We're looking forward to those results from NB Power's audit to come in April, at the end of this month, in order for us to then figure out, with that information, what else we can do to help the New Brunswickers who are struggling to pay their bills today.
Thank you. Ms. Sturgeon, a quick follow-up?
Yeah, just quickly. So I guess, is there any further financial assistance coming from the government in terms of the utility bills in the near future?
At this point, we're not here to announce specific financial assistance in the short term.
Thank you. John Chillibeck, Post Media.
I hear some skepticism, some cynicism out there about independent reviews. For instance, for NB Power, they were asked to hand select an independent reviewer of these bills that shot up in December. and they hand-selected that reviewer. So how is this process going to be truly independent?
Well, a couple ways, and I will say they selected an independent auditor who is held to the highest standards of the auditing profession, and a firm that does that for a living the same way that government gets audited by third-party external firms that are held to a professional practice. And so we trust that those firms are operating in a way that New Brunswickers can rely on the independence of their audit, because that is literally the business that they're in, and I don't think they'd continue in that business if they weren't doing that. But in this case, we recognize the same thing, that New Brunswickers are cynical about these types of processes, which is why we're choosing 3 individuals who New Brunswickers will have access to directly, giving them a flexible mandate so they will determine pieces of this that won't be directed by government or by MB Power. We have an advisory committee made up of external organizations that will be free to speak and look at this process and contribute to it in a way that we hope sheds light and contributes to the openness of the conversation and the transparency. These 3 individuals will be putting their own sort of names and reputations on the line, and will be conducting those public activities and hearing from people, because you're right, regardless of what the recommendations are, if New Brunswickers won't accept them, either because they didn't believe in the process or they don't believe in the recommendations, then we're not going to be further ahead. So we need to do this in a way that is independent and transparent. And so those 3 people will not be operating behind closed doors, and they will be supported by an external committee of advisors that are people you well know, and that will be speaking out in the best interest of their organizations to try to make sure that folks can trust these people and this process.
The process sees this going on till the end of the fiscal year, so basically a year from now, when the recommendations will come forward, the final recommendations, it'll take us some time to make some changes, so we're talking more than a year probably. How concerned are you that given you can't afford to give short-term financial relief, that people will be able to swallow these hikes, which this year amount to 10%? If you take away the 10% that you've already relieved from the 10% last year, you're still looking at quite high bills this year, especially if we have a cold winter coming up.
Yeah, we're really concerned about that. It's something that we've been talking about consistently for more than a year, right? It's part of what drove our commitment to the permanent 10% rebate on bills. It's why we've been looking at affordability measures and things that we can do. There will be more information to come on that as we get through the evaluation of the options at our disposal. But yeah, bottom line, yes, I'm really worried that, maybe now we're coming into the warmer months, and so people will start to see those massive bills decrease. But what happens next January? What can we do to look at the trajectory of rate increases and change them as quickly as possible? Because to your point, this review is for the medium term. But there's going to be another rate application filed in a number of months, and so what are we doing to try to tackle that short-term support? It's something we're looking at and talking about on the daily, and we'll look forward to sharing some more information about that.
Yeah, I think it's important to highlight that this is a medium to long-term study for the work that has to be done on NB Power, but it's not a pause for everybody else. It's not a pause for it. We continue to do the day-to-day operations, and we continue to want to improve every day for New Brunswickers. So that work is not going to stop, even though we're looking at a longer-term view of what could be for energy.
Alexandre Boudreau, l'Acadie Nouvelle.
Yes, can you hear me? I'd like to know, how will this review be different from the strategic review that was done in 2022 following the article from Keith Contract? I understand that will be public consultations, but how will this change from what you've heard in the past? That's a good question, Alexandre. We don't know what we'll hear. We don't know what we will hear that we don't already know, but there's different ways that this review will be different than the one that was done a few years ago. First of all, It's not a review by NB Power for NB Power. They conducted that study in 2023 internally, and they assessed the opportunities to save money, to have operations that were more efficient. They identified $50,000 of savings for that year and the following year. This is an external review. As the minister mentioned, we're looking at the structure of the public utility and the governance structure. And we're looking at the partnerships, sustainability, financial sustainability, and the expectations from consumers. We're doing it publicly, externally, from government, with many contributions from members of the public, from stakeholders, and from experts. And we're doing it in public forums in order to receive as many options, creative options as possible, maybe options that we didn't consider in the past. I can't wait to see what all the different solutions and options that are proposed, and how we can truly transform NB Power to ensure that New Brunswickers can be reassured that they'll have affordable, reliable, safe, sustainable energy. Mr. Boudreau, your follow-up question. Opposition parties requested a referendum for the changes about NB Power. Will you commit to organize a referendum, regardless of the solutions that are proposed by the advising committee? Answer, I think it's a little too early to do so. We don't know what the choices will be, what the options will be. If these are major changes, this is truly hypothetical at this time, and we're not there yet. We're truly interested in having every solution possible that can be proposed, creative solutions, and to see how the public responds to this process, this transparent and open process. Thank you. Alexandre Villeneuve, Radio-Canada. Thank you. When energy in a province it becomes indebted, the public service, there's been many issues. Newfoundland, Labrador, with Muskrat Falls had a huge issue, and Ottawa had to come and save that project. Have you had conversations with Ottawa so that they can ensure the energy stability here in New Brunswick? Answer, we've already had conversations with Ottawa about the stability and the reliability and the sustainability. That was on our agenda when the Prime Minister was here. This is a conversation that we're constantly having. What did you request from them? To pay part of the debt? Answer, we already have partnerships with the federal government when it comes to the infrastructure bank in partnership with NB Power. We looked at the funds that they invested in Nova Scotia to help them to maintain their rates at a particular level. So we're looking for help at a time where we don't have a clear trajectory for the utility. I mentioned earlier that there are certain things that we will continue to communicate with the public when we make decisions. We're currently in Ottawa, there's a transitional government, or there's an election happening right now, but those conversations will have to take place in the future. Question: conversations with Ottawa take place with the existing programs similar to with Muskrat Falls for funding. Answer: That's that's the conversation that we had with them in the past. Not currently. We're waiting for the new government. Those are two good examples. What happened in New Muskrat Falls and what happened in Nova Scotia. Maybe it'll be different here in New Brunswick because the conditions and the situations are and the situation is different. That's why we're having conversations with the federal government to see what is possible. In Newfoundland, it was Muskrat Falls. It was the federal government that I don't know what the name of the public utility is there, but it's similar with our projects. We have conversations similar to that to see what we can do. When we announced the 650 megawatts for wind turbines because we had to add renewable energy solutions and add it to our grid. And so that's one of many examples, but the conversations are continuing.
Co-op. Can you please unmute your microphone and ask your question?
Sorry, who's the question for? The translation audio cut off before we heard the name.
Susan O'Donnell, MB Co-op.
Okay, thank you very much for this. I have a question about how this fits. Obviously, there's a strong relationship between energy generation and climate action. And I'm wondering, first of all, how does this fit, or does this fit with the climate action plans that the government has? And will you be giving the experts on the panel any guidelines to prioritize solutions that address the climate crisis?
I think we're a little, at this point, I would be a little hesitant to restrict on any discussion. I think we're going to bring all the aspects and all the reviews that we have for them to look over, because we don't want to work outside the context of what we're already working on. But I think groups will come forward and ask about the anything to do with clean energy. So it should come up as a focus anyway.
I think they're absolutely interrelated, right? You can't separate generation from the work because that's a big part of what the utility does. And so when the minister was describing the 4 priority areas of this review, we talked about operating structure and governance, talked about financial sustainability, customer expectations, and a big part of customer expectations is that the utility deliver the cleanest possible energy. We talked about partnerships and opportunity for partnerships, and that could be partnerships in generation and partnerships for technology. And so I think the conversation about the types of energy generation go hand in hand with the cost to operate a utility, the cost to deliver power to New Brunswickers, and the type of power that New Brunswickers expect. So, and I believe you'll see that members of the advisory committee will also reflect a variety of perspectives across the energy sort of stakeholder community and the broader New Brunswick.
Ms. O'Donnell, do you have a follow-up?
I do. Thank you very, very much for that answer. Okay, this one is related to, over the last few years, there's been some information about ongoing discussions between NB Power and Ontario Power Generation, which is the public utility in Ontario. And you mentioned strategic partnerships, and I'm wondering, could you give us an update on those discussions, and are those going to be factored in or considered during this review, the potential relationship or partnership with OPG, specifically around the Point Lepreau nuclear plant? Thank you.
I'll take the middle part of that question, and maybe I'll ask the minister to take the more specific piece. But I think partnerships are key. If we want to make sure we're delivering the most affordable and safe and reliable and sustainable power to New Brunswickers, we have to look at who does what best. What do we do best here in New Brunswick, and who does other things better than we do in other parts of not only the country, but in other parts of the world? And where might there be opportunities for partnership that achieve that result of cleaner, more affordable, more reliable power in a way that is financially sustainable to the utility and to New Brunswickers? And so we're very keen to explore all types of partnerships through this review. To your specific question about OPG, I don't know if you have any new news to add.
There was a management agreement with OPG for LaPro. The reality of the advantage that we have with that agreement, NB Power and OPG, is scale. There are 19 CANDU reactors in Canada. We have one of them. OPG is responsible for 18 of them. So there's a good relationship there where we get some really some high-level expertise that is offered up to our utility. There's ongoing discussions around the renewing that agreement, and those are the kinds of partnerships I think that could be very positive for New Brunswick and NB Power in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alexander Johnson, All New Brunswick.
Good morning. I want to just follow up on that question about Ontario Power Generation and the management agreement with LaPro. Could you speak a bit more about how that relationship works? Is it effectively, it sounds to me sort of like we're effectively, I would assume, paying Ontario Power Generation for their expertise and advice in managing these reactors?
Exactly. We're using some of their expertise, high level, to help with our management.
Follow-up?
Thank you. And for follow-up, with this review, you've got the goals of NB Power's financial sustainability, but also getting bills, keeping bills affordable, keeping them in that zone. And those are, in some cases, sort of conflicting priorities. And assuming the review doesn't turn up a silver bullet that solves every problem in one fell swoop, there's going to be some decisions made there. I'm just wondering, how will you approach squaring that circle when it comes down to it?
Oh, you've put your finger on it, Alex, in terms of the challenge here, right? We've seen that, years and years of holding rate increases to 0 to 1 or 2% are part of what's contributed to the massive debt that NB Power faces, its maintenance sort of backlog, and the challenges that they face in addressing major infrastructure investments needed at Mactaquac and other places. And so delivering affordable power to New Brunswickers and running a financially sustainable utility it's finding that sweet spot in the absence of a silver bullet. And I will agree with you. I don't think there will be a silver bullet. I guess I'll be happily surprised to find out if there is one. But we think the solutions are going to be complex and multifaceted, and probably many. There's probably many different things that we are going to need to do that will include changes in behavior for New Brunswickers in terms of how we use power and how we think about our electricity that we need and how we pay for it and how it's generated, as one of the previous questions indicated. So really that is what we're setting out to do, is find that sweet spot where we can deliver affordable power to New Brunswickers with a financially sustainable utility.
Thank you. Nick Moore, CTV.
Good morning, Premier. I know the finer details are to come, but can you give an idea of how you envision the public consultation part of this going? And I ask that because the public seems to have an idea of how they like to do this generally. If you remember back to the French immersion public consultations, those meetings very quickly changed over to an open mic session. They didn't like the sitting at a round table discussion. So do you have an idea of what the public consultation part of this will look like?
I do, although I will leave some room for the leads to really design and direct that process, with the mandate from us that it be as open and engaging as possible. So New Brunswickers are going to be invited to participate in a whole variety of ways. Of course, we always appreciate their solutions and their questions when they come in writing and emails through the website, but we will be holding public engagement opportunities where people can come out and express at an open mic their views and ideas. I can't say exactly whether there's going to be Post-it note exercises and how people learn more about types of solutions that are being proposed by their neighbors or others or experts or people who have experience in the energy space and in running utilities. But the bottom line is we really want to hear from New Brunswickers, and they have to play a key role in designing the future of their utility, right? This is New Brunswick's energy utility, and this is how we deliver electricity to our homes and to hundreds of thousands of New Brunswickers. And so we're going to try and create as many opportunities as possible for people to come and voice their questions, get answers, voice their concerns, share their ideas and suggestions, hear from each other, learn from each other, and learn from experts, so that when we get to the end of this, the leads and the advisory committees will be producing for us a really rich report of the perspectives of New Brunswickers and experts and what the options are that will guide our decision making.
And a quick follow.
If I could just add to that, just to, there's a major difference, I think, between the consultation on the French immersion, where I certainly felt where that was a predetermined outcome that was brought to the public for them to comment on, where this review is really an open discussion of what do New Brunswickers want from their utility? What do they see? How do they see the future happening? So the format is about gathering as much information as possible. So I see it as a very positive exercise.
And quick follow, just because it is on the table, the possible sale of NB Power, parts of it. The Progressive Conservatives, Green Party, they say anything that comes back with that as the final report should be put to a referendum. Is that something that you can commit to, or anything from that final report maybe leading to a referendum right afterwards on the topic?
Thanks for that question, Nick. I think we don't know what the recommendations will be. We don't know how dramatic they'll be, whether they will include a sale or not. And so we can't say right now that yes, there will be a referendum, or no, there won't be a referendum, because we don't know what the referendum would be on. I think we've got to give the process and this plan the space to consider all options. And then and I certainly would welcome the opposition and the third-party leader to come and participate in the process and to bring their ideas and suggestions forward. And they can bring forward suggestions like the one you've raised, and it's something that we'll consider along with the recommendations that come out of this review of NB Power, and then we'll figure out how to move forward from there.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Voilà ce qui met fin à notre conférence de presse.
This is the end of our press conference. Thank you.